Hey guys, have you ever had a problem during a startup situation with a gearbox and you come to find out that the gearbox had been sitting for several months or even several years before installation? It could have been a problem with the long-term storage. Hey, this is Scott, Sumitomo Drive Technologies. Today we're going to talk about long-term storage, some current things you've probably heard about on as far as how to store gearboxes, what happens if you do not rotate the shafts, or if your storage locations are not good. So, number one, temperature. We obviously warehousing, you want constant temperature, so if you're going to store the gearbox in a warehouse, it needs to be a constant temperature. You can prep the gearbox accordingly, 70 to 80 degrees, depending, obviously is the best. Outside, temperatures go up and down depending on where you're at in your geography. Very important to understand what your temperatures are going to be. The biggest thing is the storage location. If the gearbox is going to be stored in a warehouse, you do not want it stored anywhere where there's heavy equipment, forklifts, cranes, because this creates vibration, and the worst thing that can happen with rotating elements without a good film thickness between them is metal-to-metal contact, and you've introduced vibration. We've had so many cases of false Brinelling over the years, and what this is rollers are sitting up against the race and have not been rotated, and they're basically vibrating together as equipment's passing by, and this creates a failure that you really just can't catch it. You get a gearbox, you pull it off the shelf, you think everything's okay, you install it, it runs for a few months, and nobody knows what happens. It starts off real good and running fine, nice and smooth. The next thing you know, you have a catastrophic failure. When you're outside and you're on a job site, we understand there's going to be construction equipment. We have one situation with a very large cyclo came in. Nobody could figure out where this vibration was coming from. We did a full-blown failure analysis, and come to find out after investigation, the warehouse that these gearboxes were stored in was right beside a brand new paved road. Well, when you pave a road, you're going to use vibratory compactors to finish the paving, and this is what happened at all these gearboxes, and it was very expensive to repair. So just be aware of that where you're storing the gearbox at on a job site. We know you can't avoid all that. That's why it's critical to rotate the shafts. The second thing is if you have motor bearings, you have a gear motor that you're storing, and you have grease in these bearings. So the grease does not last forever. It has a shelf life. It's in storage, so pay attention to that. You don't want to pull a gearbox off that's been on a shelf for 2, 3, 4 years without making sure that grease is going to be okay, which in most motor bearings, it's either shielded one side or a sealed bearing. So just be, that's the risk that you're taking, is that lubrication may be spent. So we'll talk a little bit about, we talked about storing gearboxes that you've purchased. We're talking about spares. We would, based on the things that we've already spoke about in this video, and based on the history of gearbox returns, which is once a gearbox comes back from the field and we take it apart, it's almost like a CSI every time, because there's new things to look at and there's new things to understand. One point that we would like to emphasize is spare units. You should highly consider prepping this unit for long-term storage if it's going to be a spare, because the expectation for buying a new unit is it runs its life cycle. A spare may not be put in for 5 to 10 years. We would highly recommend you prep this for long-term storage. And if you do it at the factory, it's going to be done the way we described. We're going to coat the shafts, we're going to protect them, and we're going to coat the seals with grease. We're going to put the VaporTech inside the gearbox. This will protect the gearbox for 6 months. And then you got to keep applying this as we talked about, and follow our manual for long-term storage. Now, when you take these spares or these units out of long-term storage, we have a before startup procedure that you need to follow. The VaporTech can be drained. You don't have to flush the gearbox with something. The VaporTech can be drained. You can put your new oil in and start the gearbox. But obviously you got to put your breather in. Just make sure you do a good health check of the gearbox before you start it. Go around and check the seals. Make sure the seals are still in good shape before you install this gearbox. It's a lot easier to put seals in before coupling halves are put on or before you get it installed in your equipment. All right, make sure to check out our, oh God, what is this one? What is this one? Man, that sounds bad. Follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Too much pressure. All right, I'm out of here.